So welcome to the West Asheville Revitalization Commission meeting. Digital edition, I guess, is what we should call it. Go ahead and pull this back up. Come on. All right, so y'all should be seeing our nice little entry slide here. So we're starting a little bit after 5:30, but like I said, it's May 13th, 2020. And that's the next slide. All right, so not necessarily all of our commission members are here right now. However, our commission members are Mayor Tecklenburg, Councilmember Sheik, Councilmember Waring, Councilmember Brady, John DeStefano, Brantley Moody from Charleston County, Teresa Tystrom, Justin Faria, let's mess up so many names tonight. Trudy Krawcheck, Ashley Jackrell, Diane Hamilton, Chrislyn Gleaton, Mary Peters, Kenneth Moralda, Jimmy Palacios, Reverend Demet Jenkins, Charlie Smith, Jonathan Zucker. I'm your staff member, Eric Pullman. We also have Christopher Morgan on from the city staff to help me run some of the technology here. For the general public, the West Asheville Revitalization Commission is a public meeting with an opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting. The comments may or may not generate additional discussion by the commission at the chairman's discretion. The public can ask direct questions during two presenters. The public is welcome to observe the meeting. That is what the attendee mode is that you're all in right now. Questions may be submitted via the Q&A icon that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. You can also submit any comments or request to speak at innovate.charleston-sc.gov/meetings. I would ask any and all commission members to make sure that you are on mute. The WARC administrator will introduce an agenda item and the presenters. The presentation will then be given by the speakers. At the conclusion of the presentation, the chairman will open up for commissioners for questions and comments. Questions from the public may be submitted, as I said before, and then for any additional information after the meeting, feel free to contact myself, or you can visit the charleston.sc.gov/WARC, where you can actually find the presentations already loaded.
Eric, do you have the capability of muting?
I do. Give me one moment.
There was a feedback from somewhere.
Yeah.
I would ask you to go ahead and mute everybody except those who raise their hands and need to be spoken at the time. So we don't have the background noise. Okay, so I'm going to call to order the meeting of the West Asheville Revitalization Commission on this 13th day of May 2020. I welcome all of our commission members. Mr. Pullman has announced you for the record. We have several other guests who are going to participate in the agenda items before us. And as Mr. Pullman mentioned a few moments ago, we will open up for a public comment period, and we will address those comments time permitting. We have a very active agenda with some very important items we need to cover. You should have received some minutes from our last meeting. Commission members, have you had an opportunity to review those minutes? And are you ready to vote on those approval of those minutes?
Actually, no minutes were sent out, sir. We have not received our last bank of minutes.
All right. Well, then we're going to jump right into our Sumar Street development update. And so who's going to lead off from Landmark?
Well, I'm going to do just a little brief introduction on that presentation. So, like you said, Landmark Development. From them, we have Jason Ward and Jonathan Oakman here, along with Dinos Leolio and Andy Clark from Leolio Architecture. They were the recipients of the RFQ. They were the ones who came through the city's RFQ process that was put out back in December. And we have been working with them since they were selected as the development team so far. for the Sumar Street site. And really, we have a unique opportunity here that a typical scenario would be that you have an RFQ go out to the public, you have a lot of businesses send in that they're qualified, you then re-release a request for proposal. Landmark and Leolio were actually the only ones who saw the opportunity presented on the site and submitted for this. So we actually have a very unique scenario that we get to kind of craft their RFP with them. And it's going to be coming to City Council in the near future. We wanted to bring it to you guys first to make sure that anything that is presented to Council is going to be in line already with what the Commission sees for this site. They are both local firms. They have done a lot of work around the area. And after that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to one of their team. I'm not sure which one of the four, but they'll be sharing their screen presentation. And take it away, guys. Enos, you are muted. Give me a second here.
Are we
All
okay
right.
now?
There we go. Yes, sir.
I know my wife would love to keep me muted.
We're recording this, Dino, so don't forget that.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you. Jason, would you like to begin as an introduction?
Sure. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the opportunity to present our ideas for this significant property, to the city and commissioners and all the residents alike. We're extremely excited about this site, and we understand the significance of the site, and we've actually spent a great deal of time and energy with obviously the support of our best-in-class design team to put together the plans that we're about to show you, which are our ideas as to why this site works best. But we welcome your input, and we look forward to working through this with you. A quick snapshot about Landmark Enterprises. Our first office was in Charleston. We are a local firm. We were founded in 1974. We have a large portfolio of properties in the area. We're very familiar with the process and how to develop great projects that are significant to the municipalities that we develop within. This is our own backyard, and we want to get this right. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Dinos.
Thank you, Jason, and good afternoon, all. It's wonderful seeing you. Truly, thank you, too, for your leadership on council and Mayor Tecklenburg for bringing us through this pandemic and very, very strange time indeed. We are absolutely delighted to be here sharing this with you. Andy Clark and I have worked very closely with Eric and Christopher Morgan and Jacob Lindsay, and of course, Councilman Shade and the mayor and others on city staff as we've developed concept site plans for this project. Just a little bit about Leolio. We're celebrating our 64th anniversary in the Charleston area. We're a firm of about 30 people providing architectural and planning services throughout the Southeast, Puerto Rico, and actually the US Virgin Islands. A few local projects you may be familiar with include the Charlestown Landing Visitor Center and Founders Hall, Lewis Waring Senior Center, and Fire Station 11, which is adjacent to the Charleston 9 Memorial and currently under construction on Savannah Highway. We're absolutely delighted to continue our relationship with Landmark as we are partnered together on the evolution, rehabilitation, and revitalization of the Old City Jail. But to be working on such a significant project as Northbridge Gateway is truly quite an honor. As Jason was sharing, we wanted to walk you through our early thought process, sharing some of the inspirational aspects that have brought us to the point that we're at, and the evolution of site concepts that we've been working on. And of course, the foundation and basis of all of the evolution has been the hard work and effort of the West Ashley Revitalization Commission and the Plan West Ashley Master Plan, certainly showing the significance of this north entry portal to the city of Charleston and to the West Ashley area as well. It's such an interesting site, being triangular in shape, so many different aspects that we have wanted to address. But nonetheless, the significance of the site has not gone unnoticed. And the phenomenal work that the Civic Design Center and the Alan Davis has done with regards to the initial early onset of some of the thought process. This is actually the seed upon which we have springboarded our entire evolution and thought process. And I think you're going to see, as we walk through some of the inspirational aspects, elements from the Civic Design Center's charrettes and public hearings that are being introduced and developed as we have walked through various aspects of everything. Just very briefly, influencers that have impacted us, of course, is the very large residential area, which is a soft context that we see surrounding the site. And of course, the commercial district, you see us right here in the heart of it all. And this road serving as historic portals to not only Charleston, but to the Garden District of Charleston. Upon looking and studying and talking about the Civic Design Center issues, we took a number of very quick charrette sketches that we thought might help us evolve a thought and process with respects to how the site lays out, what the possibilities and particularly the characteristics of the site are, and some of the assets that we can in fact take advantage of. And then, of course, one of the early stages that we went through was sense programmatically of how we might begin to look at the combination of mixed uses on this site and how they may actually begin to respond to this 2+ acres of property. Jason, did you want to talk about this at all as far as how some of the evolution of the square footage came about?
Eric,
Sure.
you may need to unmute him.
I'm sorry, who is that you wanted unmuted, sir?
Jason, if that would be okay for just a moment.
Sure. So
There we go.
when we look at any project, we like to dive into the market itself and understand what is truly needed in that market. And these are the things that we have come up with based on, like size buildings, like size, uses in that market. And we feel like that these are supportable square footages based on the configuration and the design that we have. So, we have, through our internal brokerage team, we have studied the market and understand what the current demand for this type of square footage is in the market. And we feel very comfortable that these square footages are within reason for this market right now.
And we know one of the important aspects, of course, is the civic function that will occupy the site, roughly 20,000 square feet. We figure 8,000 square feet at this point in time might be dedicated to assembly gathering space. And then about 12,000 square feet of leased office space, office function in the area of 30,000 square feet, and then retail restaurant of roughly 10,000 square feet. We have been using as our metric a development between a 50 and 60,000 square foot project. Now, there are a lot of phenomenal opportunities that we find just by virtue of the shape of the site itself. And one of the aspects was what if incorporated within the context of a development of this as a vertical feature that might provide not only a symbolic identity to the location as you approach it, not only from the North Ashley River Bridge, but also both from Sam Rittenberg and Old Town, but also possibly an opportunity to go vertically just to see the West Ashley area, the view of the Ashley River, the view toward Charlestown Landing, and even the view toward the peninsula. So you'll see a little bit of references as we walk through some of the plans in this regard. Urban dialogue, there's nothing richer than Charleston when it comes to urban dialogue. And 3 of these images come directly from the downtown area, which is a wonderful link as well to the West Ashley area. The elements that we're trying to capture here are the character of personal space, the pedestrian space, the ability for pedestrians on a pedestrian path and people in a building to be able to communicate directly. If you've been to Europe, particularly on some of those wonderfully small personal streets, you have a sense of how everything is interconnected. So consequently, this is an important component. And one of the things that Jason and Jonathan have asked us to pursue particularly is lessons from the COVID-19 virus. What can we utilize from these experiences right now as we go forward in these developments? And of course, outside spaces are an important component as we continue to develop this. Linear parks which provide us a boundary for our property, the interconnection of our property to surrounding properties, the opportunity for pedestrian travel, for exercise, and a variety of other issues, and particularly to provide some soft boundaries as it relates to the roads, the Old Town Road and to Sam Rittenberg right now. You'll see references as we walk through some of the three concepts that we'll be talking about. And the public gathering spaces, which to us are extremely important as this property begins to develop. The idea that, that this is a gathering location for people to come, whether it might be, as the top image might suggest, as an outdoor concert or a Friday night movies, or in some manner bringing people together. And this might actually relate back to what might be happening internally to this space as an indoor assembly or performance area. Outdoor dining, cafes are so important in the evolution of this thought process as we walk through the beginning aspects of how this might begin to lay out. So these are just a few of the inspirational images that we felt might help as we begin to walk through the three schemes. So the first scheme is the Sumar Street option. This is a direct evolution from the Civic Design Center's design conclusion through the charrette process. It shows at the top of the page, which we feel is very appropriate, the idea of the civic facility, civic component holding this site down at the apex of the triangle. And that the other buildings located toward the north side of or the south side of the property are possibly two-story structures, with the ground level primarily being retail, restaurants, and the upper levels being office space. The component here that we know that's a strong piece of the Civic Design Center solution and the charrette process was activating Sumar Street. As you will see in the forthcoming presentations, we took that concept of the activation of Sumar Street even more literally internal to the site. Our only aspect here is that we have no control on the other side of Sumar Street, but we do see, even with this solution, in some manner, activating in a more pedestrian manner as well the aspect of Sumar. And from an aerial perspective manner, it begins to look like what we might imagine: a softening of the property, a softening of the presentation of how it all works, the idea of where the civic design and civic component might be, and soft seating outside of it, so that again, not only it serves as an internal function, but also offers an outside function as well. And then the interconnection of all these linear parks that begin to wrap, and how it might begin to relate to the southern boundaries of the property across the street. Then we took it one step further and said, okay, what if we take the concept of Sumar and turn it internally into the site, and basically create this very strong, narrow, personal pedestrian path that ties us from this locale all the way through the site, all the way to the Civic Center facility, where the retail and the office spaces would be intermingled within the context of this personal space, and that in fact it begins to peek out onto Old Town Road, and then also provides the parking access predominantly to this side of the property, and has really very nice, narrow, pedestrian-oriented axes into this pedestrian space that serves all of these functions here. Then we looked at, the vertical tower or vertical element that we spoke about symbolically at the apex of the property, linear park that wraps all the way down Sam Rittenberg that softens this area of the park, a water feature within the context of this area, the opportunity ultimately to translate this softening of Sumar Street, depending on the evolution of what happens on this side of Sumar, but tying this pedestrian alleyway all the way down to the next road, which gives us a wonderful interconnection between the neighborhoods around and to this property itself. And the visual evolution of how this might begin to look incorporates the ideas of structures that could possibly serve as Saturday art shelters, possibly a farmer's market can be integrated within the context of this linear park. You can begin to get a sense here of how the pedestrian area begins to integrate as well with activities that could be outside as well as inside. And if you can imagine on days like we've had over the last week or so, how magnificent and beautiful that could be as far as in a relationship and bringing communities and neighborhoods onto this property, utilizing the restaurants, people coming from the office spaces, and then attending outdoor concerts. So then we took that one step further and we said, well, what if we flipped this idea and look at creating this building wall along Sam Rittenberg, which is a much more commercial street, and softening the approach on Old Town, which is a much softer, residentially scaled area, and created the same type of concept that where it might give us a little bit better opportunity, depending again what happens on the south side of Sumar, to connect back with pedestrian axes that come all the way within the context of this new developed area, softening Sumar. Again, creating our parking on this side. As you can see here, this would be our soft seating on the outside from the civic facility, the performing arts facility, the Friday night movies, and then possibly even taking part of the parking and making it soft parking so that on evenings of large crowds, we can expand the outdoor seating and the soft seating as far as the activities that might begin to happen with the civic complex. The other element that we started looking at was how do we, and I think this was obviously one of the strong suggestions of the city, is the public transportation, public transit, and how do we begin to integrate within the context of this overall develop a possible aspect of public transit, bus stop. So, this is an introduction again of another component that can be integrated in here. And then depending on how this is developed, possibly even the extension of this development into this little parking area that becomes more building so that it begins to provide a somewhat a boulevard feel for the entry portal, and then a water feature at the very corner on Sam Rittenberg that softens the feel of the property itself. So this would be kind of a visual from a site planning concept of how this might begin to evolve and develop. And you can begin to get a sense of bus shelter, vertical structures holding the corner of Old Town and Sumar, these structures holding the corner of Sumar and Sam Rittenberg, and of course the vertical element and the civic design facility or civic center holding down the apex of the site itself. So these are the beginning seeds that we felt that were instrumental through a number of schemes that we have gone through, and wanted to stop here and see if there were any comments and thoughts or going back to any other schemes as far as the commission is concerned.
So Dinos, I will take the lead on this, and I'm certainly going to encourage all of my commission members who are participating to chime in. You are a wonderful designer and architect. Your vision is, I think, what we were all looking for, but you're also a very good communicator. I just really appreciate what you were able to show us and tie these particular alternatives into the community. And this is very much in line with what I think the city, and I mentioned that to you before when you gave us a peek view of this. And my favorite aspect of all of this is on the Sam Rittenberg side. So I think that fits in more with the commercial aspect of Sam Rittenberg. The linear parks are critically important to this project, and the availability to have some kind of outdoor activity, outdoor performance or event tying into the Civic Center. And then you surprised us all with the tower, and I think that is a good. We're placing our flagpole here at this corner, and to have the tower high enough for what you said very early in your presentation that I find critically important. Number one, it can be seen from different angles of motorists, pedestrians, or bicyclists traveling around the area. So it will be a focal point to draw people's attention to the area. And then if it's tall enough, obviously, that people could travel up, walk up, or elevator up to the top to have a view of the Ashley River. And one of my pet peeves of this, of what we do in public service, is to provide as much public access to water that we can in the greater Charleston community. We are bordered by the Ashley and Cooper rivers, and goodness, we should take much more advantage of the magnificent views we have. So that is sort of my lead off on all that. I've got a lot more other details to discuss. I don't want to hog the presentation. I want really to hear from anybody else on your team that you think needs to chime in, or and more particularly, commission members, please let me hear from you, what you like, what you don't like, what is your preference. And I see Eric's going to have to help me because I have only a split screen, but I do see Charlie Smith with his hand up. So can we unmute Charlie and let him chime in?
I believe he should be able to unmute himself, but here we go.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Dinos, for your presentation. I'm particularly struck by the vertical element. I think that is critically important, and it's also an historical precedent, West Ashley, and if you think of Blessed Sacrament, the Rodenberg Building, maybe John Wesley Methodist and Ashley River Baptist, those punctuations of the skyline really give us a sense of place, and I think it's really important that we do that here. And in that same vein, I would say that we want to make sure that the roofline articulation gets a treatment that gives us a feeling more than just a sense of boxiness of the buildings. And we want to make sure that all the elevations of the buildings are appropriate viewing from the street, so that we don't get that view like we had of the backside of the Piggly Wiggly building for so long. All the views of the buildings need to be nice looking.
Yes,
I like where you're going here. I particularly like that first rendering where we had the separation between the point on the triangle and had the buildings move to the other side, so we maximize that green space in the center, and then focus the more commercial aspects on it on Sumar, so we're not building a continuous wall down either Sam Rittenberg or on 61. There's a break between the buildings, and I like that, and I think it gives a more park-like character to the space. But thank you for this.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie. Eric, anybody else have their hand up? Eric?
Yes, quite a few people actually. So I've gone ahead and unmuted Mr. Maralda first.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So I also favor the Sam Rittenberg option. I think that the water feature on the corner is really reminiscent of Marion Square. And it's not an exact copy, obviously, but I think it has a similar kind of feel to it, where it's kind of welcoming to people who might be crossing from either of those sides. I also like that the buildings are massed similarly to what's around it. I mean, there's some larger buildings, obviously, but that it is broken down and there are gaps between them. And I do hope to see that those smaller gaps, those walkways, can be what the concept imagery shows. Obviously, they're not going to have the historic feel per se, but they'll feel newer, and that's a good thing. But I hope they'll have the same kind of intimate enclosure feel that it seems to evoke. I also want to echo what everyone else is saying about the tower, the vertical feature on the end there. I think it'll very nicely accent that corner. I think this site is very unique, and when people approach West Ashley from that side, it's the only site that really can hold that type of presence. There's nothing else on either side that's really as striking when you drive down Sam Rittenberg and come to that split. So I think it's a very nice opportunity to make a statement, an identity statement, and something that's very memorable. And obviously, if it's tall enough to see the views, that's a very nice feature as well. But I think conceptually having something there is definitely the right move.
Thank you, Ken. Eric, who's next on our hand raising?
All right, let's see. I'll just go in order that's on my screen, and it'll be Miss Hamilton. Miss Hamilton? Okay, we don't seem to be able to unmute her right now, so.
Okay, I have
Oh, there we go.
tablet on my end. I want to thank you, Dinos, for the presentation. I am definitely impressed with the tower feature and the idea of it maybe serving as a viewing space. I think that's excellent. I also like the overall concept that it adds to this being a destination because of the way it has been, the items have been processed here, that this will add to West Ashley being a destination point and not just some place to drive through. The water feature, you anticipated a question. When I looked at the original drawings, I couldn't pick up on the water feature until you start explaining it. And I do like the water feature and maybe having more than one, because this one is located just on one side. Maybe something else could be in another location as well. But overall, I also like the idea of the third diagram where the commercial buildings were on the Sam Rittenberg side. But I also understand, I think Charlie made the comment about having it on the Suma Street. I think both of those, but I didn't like it on the side that was parallel to the other buildings. Where you could not see the Publix, that area. I think that sort of blocked it off, but I really do like the presentation. I'm impressed with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Okay, Eric.
All right.
Is
Ms.
Councilmember-
Jackrell?
Okay.
There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Leolio. Would you mind scrolling back up to the first of the options?
And Eric, who's speaking now? I can't see who's talking.
It's Ashley Jackrell.
Okay, Ashley, thank you.
If you guys could kind of announce your name when you do start talking, in case someone can't see you or for minutes later on.
Of course, happy to. Okay, so I hear what the other commission members are saying about the Sam Rittenberg option. I think those ideas certainly all matter. I think from a visibility standpoint, I have concerns about the retail being tucked behind the office buildings from a leasability standpoint, and also questions about how those buildings would be accessed from a services standpoint. And also, in stepping the buildings back in terms of height, if you have one or two story retail along the street with the taller office buildings set back, that could potentially be one way to solve that issue with the Sam Rittenberg option. But definitely like the tower. There have been a lot of questions about the site and access, and both from a vehicular and pedestrian standpoint. Councilman Moody, the project, we're basically completely stalled at this point. That's right, about what was going to be happening with 7 and 171.
Ashley, yes. The first iteration of plans was, I think, 75 to 80% rejected by the by the Sandhurst Ashley Hall Manor side of the road. The county went back and equal disdain for round 2 from the Northbridge Terrace Park Shore side. So where it sits now, Peter, let me know if I skip anything, but improvements at Charlestown Road where it intersects with Donahue and Dickens. More than likely, Ashley, a light possibly installed at Amberley on the Sam Rittenberg side. That's a hot spot of wrecks there where people exit the Publix there at Amberley. That would probably be the closest access to it.
Okay, and so probably
Actually, the other part of all that, and Councilman Moody's spot on what he told you, is also to try to create more of a pedestrian access on the Old Town roadside, because it stops at that Charlestown Estates Road, to extend that all the way down to the Ashley Plaza, and bring it all the way down to Sumar Street. Plus some other improvements are not really appropriate with our discussion right now, but that was the only other addition I would throw in there.
Okay. And, the other option appealed to me more so just because the buildings were more evenly distributed, and I found that to be a little bit less cumbersome visually than having the cluster of the buildings. But I do appreciate the water feature and the tower. I think those were nice additions.
Thank you, Ashley.
You're welcome.
Mayor Peters?
Eric, is the mayor or Councilmember Waring?
It looks like the mayor has temporarily stepped by. However, Ms. Peters has been trying to get our attention.
Okay, well, please include her.
Yes, Venus is a beautiful design. And what I'm wondering is the access for bicycles onto the property from Sam Rittenberg or the other streets. Do you have
yes, ma'am.
proposal for that?
I think one of the things that I know Jason and Jonathan have been talking about is alternative access as far as families riding bicycles, and which is the idea behind the linear parks reaching all the way down to down south past the Ashley Plaza Mall. I'm showing my age now. So yes.
No, we make that same mistake, Dinos, all the time. Councilmember Waring.
Well, Councilman Waring is much older than you and I, Councilman Shade. So
yes,
but yes, ma'am, we will be sure that alternative means, walking, bicycles, a variety of issues, parking for bicycles will be a component of this. Somebody, and I don't remember, maybe it was Councilman Shade that said, the idea here is that this is a destination. We want it to be more than just coming to work and leaving. We want people to stay and enjoy the ambiance of the site. So the cycling, the walking are all major components of this design evolution.
Okay, thank you.
I see County Councilman Moody has his hand up. Is that correct, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I guess maybe to Ashley, in stepping out just a little bit, who do you see, Ashley, or any other realtors as possible tenants here? And do we know what, if anything, the Captain D's off-site, but in the old, there was a BP station, I think, that was right there on that corner of Sumar Street too. Are there any movements there? I mean, I think we're all in consensus that any of these plans are wonderful, but boy, it sure would be nice to see those other two properties get moved or get improved as well. Ashley, any ideas? Go ahead.
Just to interject really quickly there, the two properties you mentioned, the former BP or gas station, along with the former Captain D's, are both owned by the Wintergreen Corporation or Wintergreen Development Partners. I can't remember their title after Wintergreen, who also own Ashley Plaza there, Ashley Landings. And they do not currently have any solid leasing plans on either of those parcels. It's my belief that they're kind of waiting to see what we do on our side so they can use that as leverage to lease out their sites. So.
Any other commission members?
I see Councilman Waring. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Dinos, always great to have you on the team because the imagination always goes through the roof.
Thank you, my friend.
Now, I've complimented you, so let me come back with my Frank Lloyd Waring.
I was waiting for that to happen.
That's right. Frank Lloyd Waring's questions, okay?
Yes, sir.
The portion that's pictured now, I mean, when we come into this, no, keep the screen where you have it.
Okay, right there.
Go back. That's right. Keep that version up with the Civic Center being at the point. This is the gateway coming into South Carolina, coming into West Ashley, and this is the gateway coming into the birthplace of South Carolina. So when we hit this point, obviously we want it to be interesting, and it is, but I mean, we want to increase, I think, the interest at that point. I like the tower, but I definitely think a water feature ought to be there. Now, hypothetically, any of these buildings going to be a parking deck?
No, sir.
Okay, so if we were to create a parking deck, some of this service parking right here may be converted to green space, okay, or the linear park or the invite would be, well, more inviting. But, and I know the triangle isn't as large where the Civic Center is now shown, but it may not be as attractive with the buildings being back on Sumar Street, but you know, if we had some green space and if these rooftops were to be utilized for gatherings on top of some of these rooftops, you know, kind of like, I guess, how you have rooftop bars downtown, rooftop receptions downtown. I think there's a wonderful opportunity to use those plazas, if you will, on top of the buildings, because you come in here and you can imagine people hopefully having fun on some of these rooftops. Again, would make sense. Now, if the open space, where right now where you have the parking right now at the corner of Sumar and Old Town Road, yes, hypothetically, if we had an openness that came from the tower and a water feature as we progressed into the site and then the buildings, what somebody else had made mention about maybe a step back approach to it. I'm just thinking with a parking deck, that green space, although limited, could be increased. Now, Councilman Moody probably doesn't want to hear this, but you see this little spit of land that's the median at the very top of the triangle? Yeah, that the land at the, I'm wondering, is there a way that we could maybe shift the lanes to the point to where the portion that's headed to town would maybe come through some of that green area and some of that median, and some of that median can become part of this triangle, or some of that pavement right now would be part of the part of this gateway coming in. You follow me? Am I confusing on that point. Right where the arrows, go to the right a little bit, or right, the actual median in the street. Suppose the roadway kind of came through some of that, and what we now see is pavement. That pavement was part of where the tower and the green space is now. I mean, just a little shift in the roadway. I'm just play around with it and see what could potentially happen. But I thought the idea about two water features. I like the one at Sumar and Sam Rittenberg, but I think there should be a water feature incorporated with that tower at the point coming in. And if somehow, obviously, with the buildings being there, you can't see some of the green space in the middle. But obviously, I think maybe with some slight alignment. You had another version with, obviously, with the buildings being back on Sumar, but maybe some combination of, I think if a parking deck was here, and you know, if you go to the mall over at Mount Pleasant, they have incorporated a two-story parking deck. I think it's two-story, maybe three, on the back side, and parking is free. If somehow we figure out a way to do that, and with the land now being paid for, I think the city can come up with some, hopefully that land is solid there and we don't have to drive pylons and stuff like we have to do in the peninsula to build a parking garage. I hope that's not pluff mud underneath this thing, but if we can get a parking deck there, again, being free, and I've been to malls in other parts of the country where that's true, maybe the city can step up, maybe with some monies out of TIF or something, Peter, to come up with, because West Ashley, people like to park for free. For some reason, I don't know why. Anyway.
It's part of our DNA, Councilman.
Yeah, I know.
And by the way, not to take this from Councilmember Moody, but some of the redesigns of that intersection had in fact shifted, was just what you were describing.
Is that right?
Lane.
Yeah.
And if some of those would have been approved, we would have picked up a good chunk of land, exactly what you described. Isn't that right, Councilman Moody?
Yeah, Mr. Shade, I had raised my hand, Mr. Waring. So yeah, some of those very plans were in the roads projects were rejected. I'll say on the parking garage, one of the concerns that our neighbors in Northbridge Terrace had was a parking garage on that side, or any tall hulking building on that side. So if we were to look at that, I think it would need to be on the commercial or Sumar side. I think Northbridge Terrace would object greatly to having a tall structure like that over there.
I agree with you on that. I think that if we go to a third or fourth level, it would probably have to be more on the Sumar and or Sam Rittenberg side to do that.
Well, Erica, if you go back up to the previous drawing, I mean, you're right there. Okay, I'm sure we can incorporate, you know, even if it's 2 stories, you know, something. It could be on the you know, Sumar Street side, but if this teal color building or the civic building were to be pulled back to the Old Town Road section, Old Town portion, just pull it back. You just pull it towards Sumar, I guess, from where it is, to open up, looking in. Hypothetically, now we have a 2-story parking deck, and let's just say it's on Sumar. As a matter of fact, let's just say when you come into the entrance off of Sumar on this example, maybe you drive through the parking deck. Maybe that parking deck would be, you got surface parking, circle up off, and then obviously go into the complex. But when you came into West Ashley, you would kind of be looking at this more of the linear park. And again, if we get some usage on top of the buildings, as opposed to just being a flat top roof, again, something where people can utilize it, I think it'd be really inviting. I like the idea of the tower. I think that's great, being able to look over at the Ashley River. But let's put some water, I don't know, some interesting water feature coming into West Ashley. And somehow if you can pick up, as you did with the fire station, I don't know, picking up some of the history off of when you did the bell tower over there, you know, the memorial with the new fire station being built over there. That gets back to more St. Andrews Parish. Again, we coming into the birthplace of South Carolina. Maybe somebody's going to Charlestown, Atlantic, realize I'm not lost. I'm actually going in the right direction. Somehow, that for a gas station, that Parker's is kind of went back in time with the whitewash on the old brick over there. I think it's one of the better looking gas stations around. I think. I don't want Peter to hear that, but anyway, I think it's one of the better looking gas stations.
Councilmember Warren, we're just grateful that this site does not have a 20-pump gas station with showers.
Oh man, what are you talking about? I remember fighting that one away. Thank you for you being there. But anyway, so anyway, that's just a couple little points. And at Brantley, maybe we can figure a way to get that parking garage on the Sumar Street side so that people won't be too objectionable to it. But I'm gonna tell you now, if we put the concentration in the parking garages, as they have done downtown, if you look at the parking garage across from Marion Square next to the Francis Marion Hotel, obviously we don't need to go that tall, but it's one of the prettiest parking garages around. It doesn't even, you don't have to take a double look and say, is that a parking garage? So hopefully when we do a parking garage, it won't be something that people with just the regular concrete slabs that's hauled in, something a little bit different than that. But those are my, and I'm assuming that that wide path coming through would be like a bike pedestrian path, Mr. Leolio, on the Sandberg side, the weaving.
Over here? Yes.
Correct, right. So
Yes,
that'll be, hopefully that'll be the start of something that we can begin to connect on and make those areas bike and pedestrian friendly. So, but I think it's great. This is getting a little bit further down the line, but if we start thinking of the space and some of the people that can utilize it, some of the potential tenants, I've talked about this with Peter, and all of this is conjecture right now, but I mentioned this to the mayor as well. Charleston Water Systems is looking at potentially moving its offices, now not main footprint here, but having a place still in the city of Charleston. One of the things we had talked about was a presentation room. Have anybody been to the presentation room in the kind of like the old Saks Fifth Avenue building? It's a place that you can have a video conferencing, and actually have University of South Carolina has a School of Business has a part of it where people can go there and sit in class and see the professor in Columbia, ask Q&A back and forth, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, a presentation room in the event of if the Regional Development Alliance were to need a space like that, something that can be a number of organizations can use it as well. So kind of keep that in the mind. Obviously, if CPW were to be looking at an entity that's looking at coming to this region, to some office to set some company to come and locate, that's a use that I think a lot of entities would tap into. They wouldn't have to build it themselves. They would just come and lease it on an as-needed basis. But anyway, I've certainly overtalked my time, but I think two water features at least coming in, and the one you have there at Sam Rittenberg and Suma, I think is wonderful. So, but anyway.
Thank you, Councilmember Waring.
I see Mayor Tecklenburg has his hand raised.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, and I'm very excited by this, and I'm going to have to peel off in just a minute for another meeting I've got to go to. But maybe Dino's mentioned this, but the boxiness of the buildings is just what they call a massing study, because I know when we refine the site plan, he and Andy are going to add some beautiful architecture and roof lines and all like that to these buildings. And your comments are really terrific to help shape this. But I just wanted to share my excitement about this, some version of this plan going forward. But what he's really captured is the sense of making placemaking of a place where people want to go and gather and have a variety of things going on and a mixed use and flexibility and park space. And as I think back over that, those sessions we had engaging almost 1,000 citizens about the site, it's really pulled so many of those thoughts together. I just want to give my shout out to Dinos and Andy and to Jason and Jonathan on the development side as well. They've really brought this thing along, and I'm very excited. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
I see Justin also has his hand up.
All right, I unmuted myself. So thanks for presenting this. It looks great. You know, it looks good in absolute terms, but in relative terms, you know, much better than what's been there. How many seats are in the likely Civic Center, and what's sort of the range of square footage on the office retail square footage outside the Civic Center?
Can you scroll back to that one, Dinos? That was on the pie chart slide.
Was it, I'm on the, oh, on the pie chart.
Other direction. Yeah.
Yes, sir. There we go.
There we are. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
All right, let me move my. All right, and what is that as far as seats in the Civic?
And the seats are very fluid right now. We're looking somewhere around 150 to 250 seats internally, but a lot depends on how that assembly space is set up. If it's fixed seating, if it's seating that might be brought in and set up in different configurations. So we're really still talking about how that space may begin to serve the site itself.
And at the moment, the gathering space, it's envisioned, what staff has kind of been envisioning it as is open space, very similar to, say, an element like the schoolhouse, where it's a flexible auditorium that you can pull chairs and tables in and out as you need.
Yeah. So I guess what I was getting at, and I mean, I know, you know, this is up to the owners, and obviously the city's got zoning, but if you're trying to park office at 4 per 1,000 and retail at 2 per 1,000, it looked like you had 100 parking spaces and you need 200. And if you want 200 seats and you got 100 parking spaces, I'm wondering, is the point to self-park here, or are people going to be walking across from Publix?
So we're still kind of going through that. One thing that has been brought that has been brought up is we're going to attempt to do ULI shared parking at this location, which that anticipates, you know, certain office functions will shut down in the evening when restaurant functions kick up. So those spaces rotate out as opposed to the entire site being activated all at once. And that is something that as we move forward to City Council, that we may request a variance through a Board of Zoning Appeals or through Council to attempt a parking scenario like that.
But I understand, but right now, if you look at your office, that's 30,000. At 4 per 1,000, you're at 100%. So math's math. I mean, you can ask for a variance, but what? I mean, I guess my point's, I get the notion of complementary uses and offsetting times and off-peak hours, but if 200 old women like my mom come from Northbridge to listen to a concert,
there is the possibility, we haven't gone down the path too much, but there is a possibility to enter into some type of shared parking agreement with Wintergreen. We have not, like I said, we have not approached them about that, but you know, right now we're just trying to get our programming lined up. We're trying to get our massing lined up, and we are trying to get it to a point where our development team feels like this is what's needed in order for it to be good for West Ashley. before we bring
Look,
it to city council.
I hear you.
Justin, I
hear you.
can also,
If I was an independent developer going to the TRC downtown, that would not be an acceptable answer for the city.
I agree
so
with that.
Justin, I'll add a comment there if you don't mind. You know, the office projects that we've recently developed, you know, in the area are not requiring 4 per 1,000 at all. In fact, they're more in the, you know, 1 per 300 is even, I think, and I believe to be overparked in some way. You know, office, we're still, as Dinos mentioned, we're still dialing this in, and we understand the constraints of the site that we're trying to fit in a lot and a little. But you know, we have found success on other projects that Landmark has done in the market where these different uses share the parking. But we understand your concern, and we intend to make this right. We also believe that, you know, restaurants in the evenings, that it's more important today to have a rideshare area than it is to have full parking for these restaurants. So we're trying to dial that in. We understand your concern, and please just understand that, you know, as these square footages may compress, you know, we as a company are very conservative on parking ratios, and we will study really what the true needs are, and we'll work with the city to try to best dial that in.
So can someone back up and share a little bit what the structure is? I guess I'm lost. I understand that there was an RFP, but Jason, is the intention that Landmark will buy this, own it, and own 100% of it, or is a fee builder on behalf of the city who then inherits and sits on the economics?
We're still working through that, Justin. We're not quite there yet, but our conversations to date are that we will retain ownership and with a development agreement.
Any other commission members have a question, input? I see Councilmember Waring, but let me just make sure all the other commissioners had a chance first, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Okay. Eric, is any other commission members, before I call back on Councilmember Waring?
I do not see anyone raising their hand. Wait, Teresa has.
Well, I was waiting to hear from Teresa.
All right, I've had 2 questions come in on my phone, and then I'm watching the comments, but.
And Teresa, we're going to get to the questions from folks in a few seconds.
Right. So I'm being asked about, is there any plan for the city to have satellite offices in that space at all?
I'll answer that for you, Teresa. That in the Civic Center, what we would like to have is some kind of city presence in there. If we could put Eric's office in there, that would be an appropriate spot, honestly. In the civics area, if we could hold city council meetings in there, as opposed to going down to Charlestown Landing or to the schoolhouse, I think that would be appropriate. In the Civic Center, if we could hold neighborhood association meetings or other public gatherings there that we've been spread out, that would be appropriate as well. And also, Councilmember Waring, myself, and Councilmember Brady have become experts on these Zoom meetings. And what it has taught us is that even though we will hopefully be back at City Hall sometime soon, that we can Zoom these meetings to the public. They can assemble at the Civic Center and participate without having to come all the way down to Broad Street, particularly to have comments on a particular project or a permit application that they may have that's before City Council. And they can make their presentation remotely from this area would be, I think, a huge benefit. So some office spaces there for city purposes, but also to make it multi-purpose use for a variety of ideas is sort of what I had in mind. And I think that's been consistent with my discussions with other city officials as well.
Okay, pretty much, you know, they would love to stay in West Ashley instead of having to trek all the way downtown, you know, for permits or,
Right.
you know, whatnot.
Yes, that is very much a thought process. We're consistent with what you're thinking about as well.
Okay. That's good. Thanks.
Thank you.
And I see Ms. Jenkins has just raised her hand.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you, Mr. Dinos, that this is an awesome presentation that you've done today. And of someone who grew up West Ashley, I'm excited about what's coming to West Ashley. I really, really love that this will be a destination place and a place to hang out. I travel through South Carolina and I hang out a lot of places in Charleston, but being from West Ashley, I want to be able to do that here. And so, you know, to have a rooftop restaurant, to have a water feature where we can sit outside, whether it's day or evening, I think that's really a bonus for West Ashley. I do spend quite a bit of time at the park under the bridge, the North Bridge. And I like that space. So I like what you have come up with for the North Bridge area. So I just want to commend you for your drawings and your conception of what is to come. I do agree with Mr. Waring that a parking garage would be helpful and a non-paying parking garage. I think it's in our DNA, Peter, that we're not used to paying West Ashley. But I think having that as additional space is great. And I also like an opportunity for neighborhood associations to have a meeting space, or even organizations to have, you know, their organization have meetings there, you know, to gather for some reason. So creating a space that can be used by the community in in the Civic Center. And then also the water features on both sides, kind of whatever direction you're coming in, that it's a very appealing to the eye when you're coming through West Ashley. So I just wanted to add that to what has already been said.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Eric, is anybody else before we call back on Councilmember Waring?
I see Mr. Fiera has also raised his hand.
Yeah. And look, I'll share a little bit from the other side too with regard to parking. I mean, I think while I raise the notion of is there enough parking for this current layout, I'll say that it's easy to mention the idea of it'd be nice for Jason and Dinos to build a parking garage, but I can tell you what they hear, and the reality is when we say that is it'd be nice for you to multiply however many cars times $25,000 per and eat that. So that's a hard thing to say too. I mean, this is better than a dead pig, but we're essentially by saying, you know, do you have an extra $4 million? And the answer is no. So, you know, it'd be great for them to do wrap around a parking garage, but for every space we want them to have, the city's either got to subsidize $25,000 a space or give them the extra density to make up that so they can build taller and make it up through rent. So, you know, I do want to be fair to them. While I want my mom to not have to walk from Publix, I don't want Jason to have to walk to the bank too much.
Councilmember Waring, you wanted to
thank you.
Comments.
Thank you, Peter. You know, the idea that the city has to invest into this area to make it be what most that it can be, has to lead on this. Charleston Place would have never been developed but for the city building parking garages next up. And you look at almost every successful major node in the city of Charleston, the city has invested major capital for it to happen. That has to happen here, not just buying the land. We can't stop at that point. There was a reason before Mayor Riley left that the TIF district was drawn. It was to create a revenue source. a stream of revenue. Now, it's not going to produce what we want it to produce, but it is going to produce some revenue. So to say that a parking garage, well, nobody said that, but to infer that a parking garage can be a part of this, that was the reason, Justin, that I brought up the garage. I was like you, I just didn't come out and say, hey guys, this doesn't have enough parking. Yeah. When I looked at it, to me, I didn't think it had enough parking because I had already seen this 60,000 square feet here. So Dinos and Stantec and Landmark, in my opinion, need help with that. And that's what Peter and Carl and myself can go to the purse strings to say the city needs to continue investing in this portion. That said, go back to this is the first time I've seen this, by the way. So if you were to go back to the Sumar Street location rendering that had the buildings on that end, because I want to look at a question that came up earlier about the, I think Councilman Moody brought it up about, or maybe answered it, about this gas station and the eating place that was there. Correct.
Captain D's.
I mean, that's right, Captain D's. Hypothetically, if Sam Rittenberg turned, if Sumar Street was shifted towards the owners of that's right, Sumar Street came, let's say, through there, okay? And then, which would create some land. Maybe some of these out parcels that we're creating, I don't know, could have a Captain D's in the bottom, I don't know. Or whatever the eatery is they would like to have. Have we had any discussions with them along the line? And the reason I said that, maybe we can create more of a boulevard coming through Sumar to get to Old Town. And maybe part of those, not the gas station, of course, but maybe didn't come up with, obviously the gas station didn't work, or they would already have another one there by now. So they're gonna need to come up with an alternative use. Have we had any discussions with them as to maybe them being a part of the out parcel that's created on our side of the land, and where they are, maybe a boulevard coming through their property that makes it a little bit larger tract to work with. Has anybody had any discussions on that, Dinos?
No, sir. At this point in time, we haven't. The extent of what the RFP dictated is that we would be designing within the context of the property lines of the triangular shape there.
Gotcha. I'm just wondering if, obviously we looking with a telescope at the acreage that we have. I mean, you never know. There may be a opportunity to partner with them. I tell you what, it'd be a pretty quick answer to find that out, whether they're interested or not. Is this the same, a new entity, or is this a reformation of the old Faison group that bought the old Ashley Plaza Mall?
It is two of the former Faison. I don't know if they were owners or brokers or what, but basically they did come out of the Faison group.
Okay, so great, thank you. So that's I'm thinking that may be part of the group that we bought this part of the original group, at least, that we bought this property from. Because remember, they owned the old pig that was there, and the city bought it from them. I'm just wondering if we should. We already have this concept. If you had a little bit more space to work with, I do believe we're going to need to go to the parking garage piece. I do believe we're going to have to come up with some more monies. But if we had a little bit more land to work with, they may want to be a part of something that, or some sort of swap or something. If we go without them, let's put it like this, I think their properties are less attractive to be marketed as opposed to being a part of this. So.
No, Councilman Ware, you are on to something, because we have had those internal discussions about stretching Sumar Street, for lack of a better way of describing it, moving Sumar Street closer towards those other buildings, and sort of expanding that somehow, or even there was some discussion internally about making Sumar Street into a dedicated pedestrian path and using that space for what you just described, for maybe some parking or some other things, so that you got this constant flow of pedestrian traffic coming into here, and Sumar becomes more of a dedicated driveway as opposed to a thoroughfare. So
yeah, what virtually kills that Captain D site.
Right.
So if that becomes primarily pedestrian, that Captain D site plummets.
Right.
As far as valuation. So my point is, it would be smart on their part to say, maybe we ought to talk to you guys.
And I think that's all very doable, to have that discussion with them and see what their interest is, because we have heard back that they're waiting for this to see how they're going to respond and what their uses are going to be for those out parcels. But I think that the feasibility of what you brought up with the parking decks is very important. Because some of the first questions that were texted to me were, and Teresa brought this up as well, is parking, and what Justin has brought up is parking. So I think we're going to have to address that somehow with this project. We have been on this subject for about an hour and a half. I really do want to move on to the branding and identity. I don't think we will get through the rest of our agenda, but if that is okay with the rest of my commission members. I think Dinos just took some very extensive notes. I was watching him.
Yes, sir.
And so we got some more head scratching to do with these comments, but I do appreciate everybody's insight. I think that what we heard from every one of you commission members is something that we needed to hear, and the ideas. I think we need to plug those back in. And I know I see 12 questions that have been popped up from the public.
Yes, sir.
Is that right, Eric?
About 11 questions or comments. Yes,
okay.
Sir.
And
yeah, one last thing, Mr. Chairman, I want to say,
yes,
I just didn't want what right now could be a limited project coming forth the council until we kind of brainstorm some things. And Justin, not on this call, but man, you get your creative thinking involved with on this Sumar Street thing too, because I know
we got to fix the parking.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. I really do appreciate all the comments from everybody. And so I know we want to hear from the branding and identity stuff. Can Dinos and company hang on a little bit longer so we can add to do our presentation on the branding, and then we can come back to the Q&As. Is that agreeable with everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So Chad, can we just segue right into you, pal? Show us what we got on branding and identity, what's been kicked around.
Okay. If I could just, again, just do a brief introduction for you. So this is
good idea.
So this is the culmination of a branding and identity request for proposal that was put out probably, I think it was put out late summer last year. And on and off, I've pulled a few different WARC commission members in just to give input as we've gone along. This has been mostly staff led. We've also shown the proposed elements to the mayor's office, along with other planning and development staff and business and grid service staff, and some various West Ashley members. So Chad represents 12 Point Creative. It's his company. He is another local company. And after that, I'm going to go ahead and just turn it over to him.
Hello, everyone. Chad Klemaszewski. I'll just say the last name to get that out of the way for everybody, but you can call me Chad. First, thank you to everyone for joining us today, for taking out the time out of your day to be here. I'm sure everyone is juggling working from home, schooling, and everything else. So thank you for caring enough about, what's happening in West Ashley to log in and, follow along. So before jumping into the new branding presentation, I'd just like to say that 12 Point is sincerely thrilled to be a part of this initiative to bring a new sense of pride in the West Ashley community, and for us, an updated visual direction that we hope will be appreciated through the West Ashley community, but also assist in job growth from small businesses and larger employers. We are a smaller firm, but we're passionate about our work and we're excited to be a part of this process. So Eric, am I sharing my screen with the presentation, or are you doing that?
I have it set up where you can share your own screen, sir.
Got it. Let me just do that real quick here. All right, share screen, and let me get this up. Sorry. Okay. Everybody see that now?
We are not seeing anything yet, sir.
Share screen. Acrobat, got it. Share.
All right. Nothing's coming up. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up on my screen. Just give me a moment to open it. So you'll just have to tell me when to advance the slide.
Sorry, I'm trying to do it, but it's just not letting me jump. Oh, I got it now. Okay. Did I get it or did you get it?
I think I got it. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
All right. So go west. You can go to the next slide there. So our inspiration through the last few months, we've really drilled down into coming to the Ashley River Memorial Bridge, incorporating it into our new WA icon. The construction of that historic Ashley River Memorial Bridge in 1926 was a significant event in the 20th century growth of Charleston. It was the link between the economic engine of Charleston Peninsula and the agriculture located in the St. Andrews Parish. It also ushered in the development of residential and business growth west of the Ashley. To this day, the bridges over the Ashley River connect the greater Charleston community, including the upcoming Ashley River pedestrian crossing, which follows the path of an old rail line once used to transport commerce between our communities. As the oldest bridge in Charleston, the Ashley River Memorial Bridge is a lasting symbol from our history that serves as a unifying icon within the new West Ashley logos and branding. The turrets on it, it's a beautiful old structure, and really what we felt was a very significant connecting, unifying structure between the peninsula of Charleston and West Ashley, and bringing in the birthplace of Charleston into Charleston. The next 4 pages are variations of logos. Basically, we like to, when we're designing logos for a client or anyone, we want you to have as many variations as possible. Some are for maybe slightly more formal aspects, like the one on the upper left here that has all caps, and then some are maybe more appropriate for billboards and branding, which could be the one on the right or the crests that you see below here. The next slide will show you some of the use on darker backgrounds. Again, these are basically reversed out, so we can put them over darker photos, darker images, and you'll see some examples later where we use these on some comped up billboards. Again, a few more versions here. These are kind of getting into your horizontal options. The one there right in the middle with Ashley to the right of the word West would be the type of logo we would use on top of a website, that kind of small navigation bar. So again, we're just trying to make sure that no matter what we need a logo for, you've got a different orientation for it. And then these are just black and white grayscale versions, just to kind of bring that all together. Some of this stuff will get kind of finalized more as we start creating actual content. But for right now, these are the brand colors. We wanted to concentrate on kind of a coastal color scheme. So having kind of a deep water blue paired with a coastal blue, not to be misconstrued with a North Carolina blue. It's not a North Carolina blue. And then, you know, neutral grays, neutral colors in general are very popular to pair along with these. So as far as fonts below, we want to have a nice, good, bold font for headlines on billboards and a few different variations there. The body copy is not the exact same font used for the historic park signs, but it's similar, and it kind of brings a little bit of a conservative vibe to some of the body copy that we'd use. And then I usually like bringing along kind of a fun, you know, entertaining script font. And I thought that this one had a nice, good vintage vibe, maybe something you would see on an old gas station in St. Andrew's Parish back in the day. Some of the different requirements in this first part of the branding was to create a branding positioning for West Ashley going forward, and to something that we can kind of rally behind. A brand position is a statement in a 1 or 2 sentence declaration that communicates your brand's unique value to your customers in relation to your main competitors. So through several different iterations with within the city of Charleston, I guess, you know, members here, we kind of worked on this one. So Charleston was founded in 1670 in West Ashley, a historic community that provides a high quality, family and business friendly way of life. West Ashley is conveniently located in Charleston and allows for a connected, healthy and vibrant community with low country charm and a lively sensibility. After that, we want to have a few different starting points for text that would get pushed out into the community, either for the community of West Ashley or small business and large job creation. These are slightly different variations, kind of geared towards these specific distinct areas of focus. So the first one, kind of a community pride one for West Ashley. West Ashley is a welcoming community with a focus on quality of life. With low country charm and vibrant attitude, West Ashley residents embrace a healthy, fun, and active lifestyle. For the small business, West Ashley is a vibrant community with a high quality of life and an eager consumer base. Small businesses have the opportunity to thrive with unique, affordable spaces, excellent proximity to residents, and a new business-centric outreach combined with a dedicated City of Charleston point person. And for the large job creation, West Ashley is a vibrant community with a high quality of life and an eager consumer base. For large employers and developers, there is land available with room to grow, close to neighborhoods where employees can take advantage of an established, healthy, and fun community. Soon we'll be reaching into the next steps. Some of the items that we've discussed, and this is not limited to just this list, but a new pro-business story of West Ashley website that we can use to promote small business and larger development in certain areas that will reinforce the new community theme, development, and West Ashley pride. We're gonna incorporate some additional copywriting to really kind of flesh that out. And then there's gonna be some small business and large business presentations put together to help encourage new business in West Ashley. And then we're gonna also work on some continued community story branding, graphic support, billboards, different items to help really reinforce going west, you know, creating more things and memorable items to do in West Ashley. Some of the initial creative ideas and direction, obviously having a direct message, a unifying theme that West Ashley's community can get behind. There will be visual messages, tactical imagery to fight preconceived attitudes concerning traffic and a disconnected community, reinforcing the pride in West Ashley as a community as a whole. We would like it to be warm, clever, easy to navigate graphics, showcasing the best of what Ashley has to offer, an essential list with top destinations within each area or newest stores, restaurants, neighborhood activities. Just basically having a place where residents can go and see, hey, man, did you know that a new boutique opened up around the corner? I think it'd be really great to have a resource like that. Some of the additional thoughts that we are working on are having maybe 4 to 6 suggested West Ashley day trips, you know, where there's maybe a historic site to see, lunch at a new little spot, shopping, or, you know, maybe some biking on the Greenway. Colorful wayfinder signs with arrows pointing to other West Ashley points of interest at some of the more frequented spots. Having some maps and directories around, you know, incentivizing small business startups with free listings online or other perks instead of additional fees. Obviously, parking is an issue, improved parking. And also when you have some of these spots where that frequent visitation, having some friendly public restrooms. And then to kind of increase our content that we can work with, we'd like to hold a competition for photographers that we can use in billboards, websites, print collateral, and really just kind of showcase how beautiful West Ashley is. These are just a few mock-ups for inspiration. We can kind of go through these. This is kind of a small local for the small business type of website, something that supports shop local. You know, maybe it's new shops, a directory of shops A to Z, new dining, a dining directory A to Z, some day trips, landmarks, basically a place where, you know, you can go over there, but we're also supporting, you know, small business owners. And then obviously on the development side, having a resource that we can direct developers and builders to, or large corporations that are looking for a place to bring their company and their employees that we know are going to love life. So having a site geared towards that. These are a couple of billboard mock-ups. You know, this top image is just a stock image right now, but capturing some families actually on the Greenway, you know, or some of these scenic marsh views in West Ashley. There's a bunch of different things we can do here with billboards, directing traffic, but we really like to go west, and we really like the My Heart, My Home West Ashley themes. This is just a take on kind of a full page ad that could be run, highlighting local dining, historic spots, shopping, the Go West theme, and just kind of continuing that push with that consistent branding and look. And obviously some revised signage, taking the new branding and kind of applying it to the public spaces. So, you know, I should have had a before and after here, but this sign is kind of hard to see. It's a wooden sign. It's definitely got some years on it. And, you know, I think some more vibrant signs in these branded colors could really pop and would reinforce the brand. And then we've got to get some gear on people. So hopefully we can set up a shop and have some West Ashley Pride gear, and you know, sell some nice hats, shirts, bumper stickers, and items like that. And that's it for 12 Point.
I'm going to hold off on comments with what Chad just presented us. And if we can get to the Q&As where I've got Dinos on the phone, And then I would like to do is then suggest this. If we could move the rest of the agenda for a meeting next month, because we're already at the getting close to the 2-hour point on this meeting. I don't want to lose my commissioner members getting that point of a 2-hour meeting. Would y'all be amenable, commissioner members, to pick up the Chad's presentation? Let us hear the questions we got on the presentation, the SUMAR site, and then pick this back up sometime next month. Is that amenable to you guys? I see a lot of shaking heads.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Considering that Councilmember Waring and Brady and myself had a 4-hour meeting last night, I'm getting a little weary, quite frankly.
That's not counting the committee meetings before that, Peter.
Yes.
Peter, I'll never run for city council the length of your meetings, buddy. You can be sure of that.
we are.
There's no way. There's no way.
We are veterans. So Eric, I'm seeing 14 questions pop up. There's a couple of ways of doing this. We could take those questions and answers those questions, and then we respond to them electronically. I presume you got them electronically. Then we can respond to them electronically. Or do you folks want to hear those questions down and address it, or wait till next month to respond to those questions?
I'm gonna have to jump.
Peter, I think a number of those questions were answered during some of the Q&A, but maybe Dinos can take those offline and bring those back to us next meeting time.
Yeah.
My suggestion.
Are y'all good with that? To
I'm
come
good.
back with a follow-up, Dinos? Could you?
Yes, sir.
You and Andy be available? Jason be available?
Absolutely.
And Jonathan be available next month and maybe some of the other things that we've talked about, we can maybe explore and give an update on some of those other smaller issues that, I hate to say small issues, but some of the other issues that were brought up. Maybe we'll have some answers if possible with that. Is that amenable to the committee, to the commission?
Yes.
I see a lot of shaking heads, so I'm taking that as
Yes.
yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
And then we can also bleed over to the other item number 5 on the matrix 5 deep dive discussion as well. So is there anything else that we just need to talk about now before we adjourn this meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I just wondered if Chad can push out his presentation to the committee members.
I'm sure he can. We'll make that.
Sir, it's posted online for the public already as well. I'll send out the link to you all.
Yeah.
Good deal.
That'd be a good idea. I just have one question, Dinos, that I know is burning on everybody's mind right now.
Yes, sir.
And that is the height of the tower. So I think that was a common question. In any response to that?
Well, the only response would be that the zoning allows something up to 55 feet. Andy, I think that's correct.
Yep.
So we would be working within the context of that. And of course, love some of the comments. I think Charlie made the comment about the form of the tower and how it would relate historically. So yes, that would be at this point in time the only limitation potentially. And of course, we can pursue a variance if necessary, but that's the only limitation we have by zoning at this point.
Next month is June, and I would think that traditionally we were all headed off to end of school and vacation, things of that nature. But if you can tomorrow, email Eric on your unavailable dates, so we can go ahead and set up a time to reconvene in June. And perhaps, and I use that word, a big capital P, perhaps, we could do this with safe social distancing to do it in person. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Are we? Yes, sir, Mr. Waring.
One last question. Is this site going to be in a PUD?
We're not anticipating that right now. We are anticipating that it would go through as general business the way it is currently set up in our zoning.
Well, I got to tell you, if this parcel is ever sold and it's done and is not done in a PUD, I think the city loses control. So I think the idea of it being in a PUD, which is basically a custom zoning for those on the call that's not familiar with it. I think remember, this is a gateway coming into the birthplace of South Carolina. I think we need to have a part. We like the idea of what we're talking about here, but city puts this back in private hands. That could change. I mean, that could change 10 years from now, 20 years from now, without our say so. So let's put that food for thought. But anyway, I think that would be a good idea to do these out parcels as part of a PUD.
I think we will be crossing those T's and dotting those I's, Councilman Ware, and I think those are all very good, legitimate points and something we need to think of because we do want to maintain control.
That's right. I mean, as far as what's going to go there, and right now we own it, we have control, but the moment we sell this parcel and it's not in a PUD, then that control goes to the developer. So, and you might get that 20 pump gas station.
With that comment, Councilman Waring, I'm going to entertain a motion that we adjourn.
All right.
So moved.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Please send in your email conflict dates as soon as possible to Eric, okay?
Good meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you all very much.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you all very much. God bless y'all.
All right.